Ryan Clark. I, I'm getting tired of Ryan Clark. Look, I know he was a great player for the Steelers. I recognize it. Loved him when he was here. And for the most part, I still like the things that Ryan Clark does on a weekly basis. I love the pivot. I love those interviews. I love that he takes on controversy, that he doesn't shy away from that stuff. I like that. He doesn't just do the status quo and worry about hurt feelings or anything. For the most part, he tells the truth. But then when it's going over the line. It seems that Ryan Clark has taken on the whole ESPN agenda of just bashing the Steelers. Because Ryan Clark is, first off, he's come out and now he's attacking the Steelers. So he recognizes the greatness of Aaron Rodgers, recognizes the greatness of Mike Tomlin. He absolutely has said that they're two of the greats of all time in the NFL. I know there's a lot of Steeler fans that are going to say Mike Tomlin isn't, but deep down, you know that he is. Is he as great as what he could be? No. But that doesn't mean that he's still not going to the Hall of Fame, because he absolutely is, people. That's happening. However, it's just Ryan Clark has taken a step in the other direction. Now, here's the thing that he says about Aaron Rodgers. After 2000, when they faced him in the Super Bowl, when the Packers beat us, he said he thought that Aaron Rodgers, this is the best quarterback that he's ever played against in his entire life, and that this guy was going to go on and win several Super Bowls. That was what Ryan Clark, he came out and said it. And this is even after the fact that him and Aaron Rodgers have gone back and forth against each other on social media, basically just bashing each other. So he's come back and he says this. He thought he was going to be the best quarterback and win multiple Super Bowls, or that he was the best quarterback and win multiple Super Bowls. About Mike Tomlin, he said, hey, when I played for Nick Saban in LSU, he got us prepared and motivated as greatest that he could ever dream of, until he met Mike Tomlin, and Mike Tomlin did the exact same thing. And he thought, hey, this guy's going to be the best coach in the history of the NFL. Because, again, he was fairly young when he coached Ryan Clark. But now he's saying that that neither one of those things have happened, and that they have underachieved. That's what Ryan Clark has said, is that it's a bunch of underachievement for Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin. Now, here's the thing. First off, are the expectations too high? That's my whole thought, is maybe the expectations for these two are too high. Maybe not. Winning multiple Super Bowls, yeah, maybe that's what you got to do. Now, one thing about Aaron Rodgers, hell, he's been to the NFC Championship game multiple times. One time they had the game won. Literally had the game won. Guy drops an onside kick, he fumbles it, and Seattle gets it, goes down, ties the game, and then they don't even get the ball in overtime. That was when the rules are whoever gets it first, if you score, you win. That happens. So you can't really blame them for that. I mean, you get the lead. What else are you supposed to do? But there's other times he hasn't played well. But Aaron Rodgers is also a 4-time MVP, ladies and gentlemen. Is your career really underachieving if you're a 4-time MVP? You're the best player in the league? I don't know if that's underachieving. And again, is winning is it a team stat, or is it only a quarterback stat? Those conversations always get messy. But football is the ultimate team sport. You don't win alone. You can't win alone. You can be the best quarterback in the world. If your offensive line stinks and you got average receivers, your team is not going to be very good. And that's just simple as that. So saying that a 4-time MVP underachieved, and he's also a champion. Let's not forget, he did win a Super Bowl. I think that's going overboard. That's playing to the machine a little bit. Then about Mike Tomlin, saying the same thing about Mike Tomlin. Now, Mike Tomlin, been to 2 Super Bowls, won one. Same as Bill Cowher, because there's so many Steeler fans out there that say, well, Bill Cowher was a better coach. And maybe he was, but they both still only been to two Super Bowls. Both of them won one. Both of them have had opportunities at home to go to the Super Bowl and lose in AFC championship games. That's happened. I mean, they both have done that, you know? So, but you don't really hear a lot of people saying that Bill Cowher wasn't a good coach. Everybody says that Bill Cowher was a great coach and that he had to build something. Well, Mike Tomlin won with Bill Cowher's players, even though Bill Cowher, the team that he left, didn't make it to the Super Bowl. But whatever. I don't even want to get into that because then it just becomes a he said, she said back and forth. But Ryan Clark is saying that Tomlin underachieved. Well, okay, but remember, while it doesn't mean a hill of beans to us today because we're so frustrated we want more, he still hasn't had a losing season. Now, again, hey, if you can't win playoff games, then what does a winning season do for you? I'm right there with you. You know my feelings. I've said it a million times. If we could go to the playoffs without ever winning a regular season game and win two postseason games, I would do that every year. I'd do it every year. If we could get close to going to the Super Bowl, I'd take it. Okay? However, winning isn't easy in the National Football League. And as Steeler fans, we take that for granted. We do. We're spoiled. We're entitled. That's who we are. But that's okay. We're Steeler fans. We get to be that way. But having said that, we act like winning is just easy, and it isn't easy. And somehow Mike Tomlin has still been able to do it. Now, is it to the level that we want him to do it? No. Is it to the level that maybe they could have? No. But that doesn't mean that he's underachieved because, again, no losing seasons. That's tough. That is tough. Again, I'm not saying that's the end all be all. I'm not saying that that's the goal because neither of those are the truth. They're not. But it still doesn't mean that it's easy. I mean, hell, we saw Mike Tomlin take Duck Hodges and still not have a losing season. Duck Hodges. So if you can do it with that, you can't tell me that the man's a bad football coach. You can be disappointed with the results, but don't say he underachieved because that's just simply not true. Would you want him to have more Super Bowls? Yeah, you probably would. But how many coaches out there don't have one that we consider good coaches? Or how many of them are out there that have won and we consider them good coaches? So there's that. Another thing that Ryan Clark said is that Mike Tomlin needs to have his Andy Reid moment. And what that means is that he needs to go somewhere else and go win there. I don't buy that. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm just saying I think Mike Tomlin has an opportunity to do it here. I've said it over and over again. Anybody with eyes and a little bit of understanding knows that the Steelers have been rebuilding since 2000. Hell, probably since 2000. They've been rebuilding, but they've remained relevant while rebuilding. No other team does that. They just lose. They get rid of all their good players and they start completely over. Steelers didn't do that. They wanted to remain relevant while they were still rebuilding. And that takes some time. That's not a 1 or 2 year fix when you do that. It's never going to be a 1 or 2 year fix, but that's what's going on. And it's still going on. They're flipping the roster over as we speak. So we'll see how it works out this year. But the one thing I know, Mike Tomlin's not going anywhere. So for the people that say, oh, he's got to go, he's not. So you should save your energy, your breath, all that. That's not happening. But did he underachieve? That's a question. I find it hard that a guy that's never had a losing season saying that he's underachieved. I don't know. That's just me. Let's go to the poll question, people. Poll question number 2. Is Aaron Rodgers fairly criticized for not winning more championships despite his 4 MVPs? A, yes, he should have held a higher standard. B, no, MVP awards show his greatness. C, it depends on the team around him. Or D, chips are the only measure of matters. So is that the only thing that matters is Super Bowls? We heard somebody this week, LeBron James, come out talking about why do we get in a ring culture. And for the most part, look, and I've said it like this, and I'll explain it to you guys because I said this. Rings separate the greats from the greatest. That is what separates it. Nobody's saying that you can't be good. For instance, nobody says that Dan Marino isn't one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Nobody said, at least nobody that has half a brain that understands anything about football. They don't say that Dan Marino isn't one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But you can't put Dan Marino in the same class as a Joe Montana because Joe Montana has 4 Super Bowl rings. That's the difference. Rings separate the greatest from the great. That's what it does. Now, you could say one has better team around him. I get it. But, that's fine. But sometimes, if you're that great, you have to elevate your team. You have to be able to get more out of guys. That's what great ones do. Now, in football, it's a lot more tough because, again, it's the ultimate team sport. But sometimes you have to be able to put your team on your back and rise to the occasion. As a quarterback, that becomes really difficult if you got a bad offensive line, man. You can put the only thing that you usually got on your back is a defender because your offensive line can't block them. So it's tough. Don't get me wrong, but that's the difference. So rings separate the greatest from the great. Remember to put a number 2 for your answer so we know exactly which poll question you guys are answering. Let's move on to halftime, people. We are at halftime. I want to thank everybody for helping Steelers Almighty to be able to achieve what we've been able to achieve in such a short time period and make us one of the fastest growing Steelers channel on YouTube. We appreciate everything that you guys have done for us. Remember, like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in the comment section to become a member. If you want to help support the channel that way, you can always become a member of Steelers Almighty. There's 5 separate levels. You all know that for number 1, you get discounts on merchandise, which is also out there and available. But you also get special treatment and shout outs when we talk about the lives, when we do our live shows. We always bring your comments, questions, and rants up there. That's just the perks that you guys can get. And now that the season's starting to come around, we're going to do the all 22. You get access to that Facebook page to get the breakdowns of the entire football game of the all 22. So you guys are really going to enjoy that. And then soon, also, we're going to make some changes to membership. So when that happens, we will absolutely let you know. But also remember, Steelers Almighty merch is out and up, ladies and gentlemen. It is available. Again, Steelers Almighty shop. Go there. Pick up your merchandise. You got your Thunderbird shirts. You got your Steelers Almighty shirts, glasses, hats, mugs, all that good stuff. And it's just getting started. We'll have much more hoodies. And as the weather starts to turn, we'll have hoodies and long sleeve and beanies, all that good stuff at Steelers Almighty shop. Let's get back to it, ladies and gentlemen.